Everyone, my name is Christine Hoang, and I'm in the program on the environment. My project title is a risk analysis on the market-wide scale transition to electric vehicles. The reason why my work is important is because on its own, transportation currently emits 29% of overall greenhouse gas emissions due to the burning of fossil fuels. This comes at a great price as climate change impacts are negatively impacting vulnerable communities and the environment. To reduce carbon emissions, the transportation industry is transitioning to using electric vehicles, which I will abbreviate to EV. Many transportation manufacturers are attempting to join in the line of supply in EV manufacturing to meet the increasing demand. Because of this, mines to extract metals used in EV batteries like lithium, cobalt, and nickel are quickly opening. This causes major ethical and sustainable concerns as there have been many incidents of human rights abuse and waste that generate from mining sites in countries that do not have strict regulations for it. So, several industry leaders have dedicated their resources to identifying risks associated with EV battery usage through the cradle to cradle approach, which is creating life cycle plans for products with the intention in the design to create zero waste. At this point in time, there is a lack of regulation and standardization to mitigate negative impacts that come from the EV industry in the US. So, the research question that I've used as the basis for this project is what are the best practices for a cradle to cradle approach to electric vehicle batteries? I explored this question during my winter quarter with the help of my faculty advisor, Professor June Liu, and with my host organization, King County Metro Transit, who are in the middle of transitioning all fleets in the county to electric. Main things I looked for in my research were finding risks associated with EV batteries and opportunities for better outcomes through the examples of other governments, manufacturers, and transportation services. I was able to obtain qualitative data through literature reviews and interviewed with several transportation experts, environmental nonprofits, and related academia. Common raw materials used in EV batteries consist of cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, and sulfur. Some of the results I found was that sourcing from materials remained largely unregulated. Roughly 75% of cobalt comes from the DRC. Of that 75%, roughly 20% of cobalt mines are small artisanal mines that do not provide proper PPE, livable wages, safe working conditions, and use child labor. Leading suppliers for EV battery materials have also historically had problems that also involve environmental degradation through pollution and dumping of waste products. Currently, it's difficult for suppliers to verify whether materials are ethically and sustainably sourced. The best practice to solve some of these issues is to incorporate third-party verification to ensure ethical and sustainable sourcing of materials are enforced. Another risk is that without increasing recycling capabilities, EV battery material demand will exceed supply in the next 10 years. EV batteries come in various shapes, sizes, and components depending on the manufacturer, which have made recycling difficult. A best practice for this is to create industry standards for EV battery shapes and sizes to make recycling easier and invest in using alternative chemistries and newer recycling facilities. While some manufacturers have started partnering up with recycling companies, not enough have gone on board, and this is because there is no policy where they have to. Many recycling companies also don't feel like there's an incentive to invest in newer technology, so about 95% of EV batteries end up going to landfills as e waste. Finally, once EV batteries reach about 80% of their life, they are unable to be used for vehicles. To elongate their lifespan, it's best to promote giving them a second life, whether through radio towers or on backup stationary electric grids. For next steps, industry leaders must use supply chain pressures to enforce third party verification and ensure ethical sourcing and recycling requirements are met. There needs to be an increase in federal policies or programs to provide guidance for ethical and sustainable EV battery life cycles. Without government action, there will be a large buildup of unrecyclable EV batteries unless policies on sourcing and end of life management programs are placed. A good example of this sort of implementation is the European Union's New Green Deal, where they require materials used for electric vehicles to have a percentage be composed of recycled materials, and that all batteries sold must be ethically sourced and have a recycle or second life plan after end of life. And while this raises concerns for EVs, I want to reiterate that using electric vehicles is still more sustainable and ethical than using gas powered vehicles, but there are still many risks that must be addressed. I would like to thank my site supervisor at King County Metro, Carrie Lee, my faculty advisor, Professor June Liu, my POE cohort friends, and family for supporting me through my research. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me at my Twitter handle at Christine Hoang. That's at ChristIneh0ANG, and I can try my best to answer. Thank you for listening.